Hello, dear members of the LovingtruthStories family. Today, we bring you a heart-touching romantic story. So let's begin, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another meaningful tale. She ran barefoot through the crowded city streets, clutching her broken shoe in one hand and her only hope for a better life in the other. Every step cut into her skin, but she refused to stop. Because at the end of that hallway, behind those polished glass doors, waited the interview that could change everything. What she didn't know was that the man who had just shattered her dignity on the sidewalk was the very billionaire CEO about to decide her future. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed on the rain-soaked sidewalk. Emily Parker, 26, ran as if the world was collapsing behind her. Her heart was beating faster than the public clock signaling noon. It was the most important interview of her life, an executive assistant position at Knight & Sons Corporation, the city's most prestigious financial group. With this job, Emily could save her small apartment from foreclosure and provide for her youngest brother, who was still in high school, but fate had a way of teasing her. That morning, Emily missed the only bus that would get her there on time. She had only a few coins left in her wallet, not enough to call a taxi. And now she was forced to run 8 blocks in her old office dress, holding a flimsy folder like a life preserver. Emily didn't have time to dodge when she turned a corner. Crack! A strong impact sent her sprawling onto the cold, damp concrete floor. Files and papers flew out like rain. But the tragedy didn't end there. The heel of the only shoe she had brought for the interview broke off, making a cracking sound like the mocking laughter of fate. Emily looked up, her eyes burning red. Before her was a tall man in a luxurious black suit. His face was cold, his eyes indifferent as if the whole world had nothing to do with him. "How are you running? You're running like a madman," he said, not bending down to help. Emily clenched the broken shoe in her hand. You just ruined my only chance. I have an important interview, and now what am I supposed to do?" The man raised his eyebrows, the corners of his lips curling up slightly. "If you're good enough, a broken pair of shoes won't stop you." The words made Emily choke. It wasn't encouragement, it was contempt. She took a deep breath, fighting back tears. "Thanks for your cheap philosophy," she replied, her voice sarcastic. The man turned and walked away, his figure like a cold, black block of ice. Emily watched him, filled with anger. Then she bent down and took off her other shoe. "If necessary, I will go barefoot, but I will not give up." Emily lifted her chin, her broken shoes in hand, her bare feet touching the cold stone floor of the magnificent Knight & Sons lobby. The eyes in the designer suits turned back, shining with mockery. But Emily kept walking, each stride affirming her will. "I may be poor, but I am not cowardly." Little did she know, the man just now was Alexander Knight, the mysterious, powerful CEO, and also the person who would be interviewing her directly. The heavy glass door closed behind Emily. She took a deep breath. The scent of expensive perfume mixed with the scent of wood from the polished floor overwhelmed her. Her bare feet stood out strangely against the marble floor, each step drawing sharp glances from the lobby staff. The receptionist, her hair neatly tied back and her uniform pressed, paused when she saw Emily. Her eyes scanned her from head to toe, then she looked up with a smirk. "Excuse me, have you come to the wrong place?" Emily swallowed, clutching her file. "I'm here for an executive assistant position. My name is Emily Parker." There was a moment of silence. Then the receptionist sighed, tapped her tablet, and pointed toward the hallway. "Waiting room number 3, but I think you should look in the mirror before you go in." Emily didn't reply, just clenched her file tighter. She had heard these contemptuous words too many times. She was used to being judged by her shoes, her old dress, or her hair that hadn't been to the salon yet. But this time, she wouldn't let herself give up. The waiting room door opened. Emily stepped inside and immediately felt out of place. 25 candidates, all dressed to the nines, brand new business dresses, designer handbags, shiny high heels. None of them looked like her barefoot, disheveled hair in a dress from a yard sale. All eyes turned to Emily, some whispered, some giggled. A girl sitting near the door, her lips bright red, deliberately spoke loudly. Maybe they're hiring more cleaners. Laughter filled the room. Emily bowed her head, her heart aching, but then she remembered her brother waiting for her at home for dinner. Her shame turned to determination. She raised her head, sat down on the last chair, and placed the file neatly on her lap. The door opened. The man walked in. Emily was stunned. It was him, the one who broke her shoe. But now there was a completely different atmosphere around him. The staff bowed respectfully, the assistant followed behind holding documents. His eyes were cold, his demeanor was majestic. "Hello, I'm Alexander Knight, CEO of Knight & Sons." The whole room fell silent. Emily felt her heart drop to the bottom of her stomach. It was him. Oh God, it was him. Alexander stepped up to the podium, his voice steady. "Among you, I will only choose one person. Not because of appearance, not because of a flashy background, but because of character. Whoever shows me that will move on." Emily closed her eyes, her palms sweating. Courage, but here I was barefoot. One by one, the candidates were called in for interviews. They walked out with tense faces. When it was her turn, Emily took a deep breath and stood up. There were whispers behind her. She probably got eliminated in the first round. The CEO would probably die laughing if he saw her bare feet. Emily did not turn back. She opened the door and entered the large room. Alexander sat at the end of the table, his cold eyes fixed on her. A flash of recognition crossed his face and he raised an eyebrow. "The girl who was running around this morning," he said, his voice half sarcastically. "I didn't expect you to be here on time." Emily bit her lip, but then held her head high. "Yes, I came, shoeless but with determination." Alexander leaned back in his chair, an unreadable smile forming at the corner of his lips. "Sit down. Give me a reason why a barefoot girl like you deserves to be my assistant." In that moment, Emily understood that this interview would be unlike any other. The interview room was so quiet that Emily could hear her own heartbeat. The long wooden table was cold, and the clear glass behind Alexander reflected the luxurious city outside, a place she had never belonged to. Alexander folded his arms, his eyes stopping on Emily's bare feet. There was no pity, no mockery, just sharpness like a knife. "You know, I don't like sloppiness," he said slowly. "But I hate quitters the most. So, what do you think made me choose you over 25 other candidates?" Emily took a breath, gently gripping the file. Her mind flashed back to the sleepless nights working overtime, the times she accepted hard work to take care of her brother. She looked up, her voice trembling but determined. "Because I don't give up, even when I lose everything. My shoes may break, my clothes may wear out, but my spirit will not. I didn't come here to make this room beautiful. I came here to work." There was a moment of silence. Alexander's eyes were dark, unreadable, but a smile, almost invisible, flickered at the corner of his lips. "Very confident," he said curtly. "We'll see how long you can keep it up." No one believed that Emily had passed the interview. When the list of candidates was posted on the bulletin board, shocked and contemptuous gazes filled the hallway. "Can you park barefoot? There must be something fishy." The first woman to step in front of Emily was Veronica Hale, the head of finance, known for her sharpness and ruthlessness. She crossed her arms, her smile cold. "You are a phenomenon. But remember, Knight & Sons is not a charity. One small mistake, and you will disappear as quickly as you appeared." Emily nodded slightly, not objecting. But in her heart, she understood that the real challenge had only just begun. On her first day at work, Emily was assigned to handle a thick stack of documents related to a $1 million project. Each page was filled with confusing numbers and intricate charts that would make even a seasoned finance student wince. Emily swallowed. She had never attended any prestigious school and only had knowledge gleaned from free online courses. But instead of giving up, she sat there for the entire session, crunching numbers and taking careful notes. At noon, when her colleagues went out to eat, she still sat there, her eyes red but persistent. And at that moment, a tall figure appeared. Alexander stood leaning against the door, arms crossed, watching. "Aren't you going to rest?" Emily looked up, her voice tired but determined. "If I don't make it in time, tomorrow will be the end for me." Alexander was silent for a moment, then walked over and placed a hot cup of coffee on the table. "No one can do it all in one day. Learn to prioritize. That's true bravery." Emily was slightly surprised, but she also noticed in the cold CEO's eyes, for the first time, something other than contempt flashed, a glimmer of concern that was hard to hide. That afternoon, the whole office was abuzz with rumors. People were saying that Emily was hired not because of her ability, but because of her relationship with Alexander. Veronica was the one who sowed the seeds of bad news. She smiled sweetly in front of Emily, but when she turned her back, she whispered to her colleague, "Don't be surprised if she gets the favor. A barefoot girl never gets high without clinging to someone." Rumors spread like wildfire. Scrutinizing eyes followed Emily down the hallway. She tried to walk past, but her heart felt like it was being stabbed. At the end of the day, when Emily was alone packing up her papers, Alexander suddenly appeared. He placed the file on her desk, his eyes solemn. "Have you heard the rumors out there?" Emily clenched her fists and nodded slightly. "I don't care. I just need this job." Alexander looked at her for a long time, then said softly, "Then prove it. Prove it with your ability, not your words." At that moment, Emily knew that the road ahead would be long. But from that moment, an invisible thread began to connect the barefoot girl and the cold CEO. 2 weeks after her first day, Emily had gotten used to the harsh work schedule of night and sons. Every day, she arrived earlier than everyone else and left last. Her hands were calloused, her eyes were dark, but she never complained. That surprised and annoyed many of her colleagues. They thought the barefoot girl would give up after a few days. But no, she stood firm, quietly proving that perseverance is more powerful than flashy degrees. One morning, Emily suddenly received a hard-to-swallow task, preparing a report for the Harrison Project, a multi-million-dollar project involving major shareholders. "You just need to compile the data and assist me in the meeting," Alexander said, handing her a brick-thick stack of documents. Emily swallowed. She was in turmoil, but she still replied, "Yes, I can do it." That night, she stayed up all night, reading each chart one by one, comparing each number. Instead of just copying them down, she tried to find the trend, the cause of the fluctuations. When dawn came, Emily realized something was wrong. The sales drop last quarter was not just because of the market, but also because of a fault in the distribution system. She carefully took notes, then walked into the meeting room. The conference room was brightly lit, filled with department directors. Alexander sat at the head of the table, looking dignified. Veronica sat to the side, her cold eyes scanning Emily. The report began. The managers spoke in a familiar tone. "The reason is the unstable market. Customers have decreased demand." When it came to Emily's support, Alexander nodded slightly. "Parker, do you have anything to add?" The whole room turned to look. Emily took a breath, her heart pounding. But she remembered Alexander's words, "Prove it with your skills." "Emily Parker, executive assistant," she said briefly, opening the slides. "After analyzing it, I realized it wasn't just the market. Shipping defects were up 18% from the previous quarter, and that was the primary reason for the sales decline." A commotion arose. The managers looked at each other, clearly surprised. Veronica raised her eyebrows, her smile fading. Emily continued, her voice stronger. "If we adjust the delivery process, optimize the shipping route, we can reduce costs and regain revenue in the next quarter. This is not a prediction, but a specific number. The room was silent. Then the sales manager nodded slowly. She's right. I've also noticed a spike in shipping complaints. All eyes were on Alexander. He sat still, his cold black eyes following Emily. Then suddenly the corners of his lips lifted into a rare smile. Good, very good. The entire conference room was stunned. A CEO who was known to be difficult and rarely gave compliments now openly acknowledged the contributions of a new assistant without any prestigious qualifications who had walked into the company barefoot. It was a shocking moment. But as soon as the meeting ended, Veronica approached Emily, her voice small but full of venom. You think you're so smart? You think a few numbers will put you on par with us? Don't even dream about it. I'll have you know that Knight & Sons is no place for outsiders. Emily clutched the file, her heart trembling but her eyes still determined. I didn't come here to compete. I just want to do a good job. Veronica sneered. Just wait. The day you lose everything will come soon. In the evening, while Emily was still sitting there editing the report, Alexander suddenly returned to the office. He walked over and placed a cup of hot tea next to her. You did well. I don't praise people easily. Emily looked up, tired but warm. Thank you, sir. I just wanted to prove that I was worthy of being here. Alexander looked at her for a long time. His eyes, which were originally cold as ice, now shone with unconcealed admiration. He said softly, Maybe I was wrong about you. At that moment, in the quiet room, Emily felt something change. Not only in the eyes of the powerful CEO, but also in her own heart. News of the Harrison Project presentation spread like wildfire through Knight & Sons. The barefoot girl was said to have silenced the boardroom and even earned the CEO public praise. But instead of admiration, most criticized and envied her. To them, a poor girl without any prestigious degree, no family background, nothing but stubbornness, did not deserve such favor. In the cafeteria, whispers followed. She definitely has something for Mr. Knight. Otherwise, how could the CEO praise her in front of so many people? Barefoot for an interview and now straight into $1 million project. Does that sound reasonable? Emily heard. Every word was like a knife stabbing her heart. She tried to appear calm, but when she entered the bathroom alone, tears couldn't help but roll down. They don't understand. I've sacrificed my sleep, my health, my dignity for this opportunity. But why is all they see is doubt? One afternoon, when Emily had just finished her report, Veronica appeared, placing a thick envelope in front of her. Here are some important documents. Deliver them to the financial controller before 5 p.m. today. If you are late, I will consider you to have failed in your duties. Emily looked at her watch. Only 20 minutes left. The control room was on the 27th floor, and the elevator was stuck because of rush hour. Emily hugged the envelope tightly and ran like the wind. She ran through the hallway and up the 15-story staircase, her heart pounding. When she arrived, her back drenched in sweat, she handed the documents to the receptionist. But when they opened the envelope, inside was just blank paper. Emily was stunned. Immediately, the rumor that Emily lost confidential documents spread throughout the company. Veronica stood at a distance, her lips curved in a victorious smile. The next day, Emily was called into an emergency meeting. The room was filled with council members, the atmosphere heavy. The chairman of the board knocked on the table. Miss Parker, there is a report that you have lost important company documents. Do you have any excuse? Emily trembled, her voice choked. I received the envelope directly from Mrs. Veronica Hale, but when it arrived, there was only blank paper inside. Veronica immediately interjected, her voice cold. How ridiculous. She dares to blame me? Who can prove it? The room fell silent. Emily looked around, no one came to her defense. Just then the door opened. Alexander entered, looking majestic. Enough. His voice was low, thunderous. "I was the one who gave Parker the assignment, and I trust her. If anyone needs to be investigated, it should start with the one who gave the fake envelope." Veronica paled. "Mr. Knight, you can't defend a new employee on faith alone." Alexander interrupted, his eyes sharp as knives. "I don't defend. I base my judgment on the facts, and the facts are that Parker has done his job with a dedication that is rare for anyone in this room." The council was in an uproar. Emily stood still, her eyes blurred. This was the first time someone had openly believed in her, despite the storm. That evening, Emily was cleaning up her office alone. When she stepped out into the dark hallway, Alexander was waiting. Why are you protecting me?" Emily asked, her voice trembling slightly. Alexander looked her straight in the eyes. "Because you're worth it, and because—" He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "I don't want to lose you." Emily's heart lurched. She took a step back, both frightened and confused. "Sir Knight, this shouldn't—" Alexander stepped closer, his eyes intense. "My name is Alexander. Call me that at least when we're alone." At that moment, the cold wall between them cracked. Emily could feel her heart beating faster, and the CEO's eyes, which had been distant, suddenly became strangely familiar. But in a dark corner of the hallway, Veronica stood still, her eyes flashing with hatred. Poor girl thought it would be okay? No, the game has just begun. In the days following the board meeting, the atmosphere at Knight and Sons was tense. Rumors about Emily's relationship with Alexander were more intense than ever. Many employees gossiped about her behind her back, and some even openly avoided her. Emily felt like she was in the eye of a storm. She wanted to prove herself based on her abilities alone, but the shadow of slander was always looming. One rainy afternoon, Emily received an anonymous email sent directly to the entire board of directors. Evidence that Emily Parker is corrupt, colluding with the CEO for personal gain. Attached was a fake report, with her name on it. When the news broke out, Emily was immediately summoned. In the cold room, Veronica walked in with an arrogant look. "You see," Veronica said sweetly, "I warned you that your game would soon end. No one would believe a barefooted person could walk in here without getting their hands dirty." Emily trembled, her eyes red. She knew, this time without evidence, everything would collapse. At the most desperate moment, Alexander appeared, holding a file in his hand. He slammed it down on the table, his voice resolute. "Here's the truth. The original Harrison report, along with the internal system verification data. And this," he pointed at Veronica, "is the surveillance camera footage showing who switched the documents in the office." The screen lit up. The image of Veronica furtively changing the envelope, her cold smile was clearly visible. The room was dead silent. Veronica turned pale and tried to argue, This is a forgery," but the council had seen enough. The chairman banged on the table. "Veronica Hale, you are officially suspended, pending investigation. Security, please step aside." The sound of high heels clicked and then disappeared. Emily sat still, tears rolling down her face, not from fear this time, but from relief. After the meeting, Emily stood quietly in the hallway, watching the rain fall outside the window. Alexander walked over, no longer cold as usual. "Emily," he called softly. She turned back, her eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. Without you, I would have lost everything." "Sir?" Alexander frowned, then stepped closer. "How many times have I told you when we're alone, call me Alexander?" Emily shook her head, her voice trembling. "But you are the CEO. I am just a poor girl. This gap is too big." Alexander took her hand, his eyes determined. "The only distance that exists is the one we build ourselves. You entered my life not with money or power, but with sincerity. Emily, I don't want to lose you again." Emily's heart pounded. All the hurt, contempt, rumors suddenly melted away before the determination in his eyes. A few months later, Knight and Sons announced the Harrison project as a huge success. At the celebration, Alexander suddenly grabbed Emily's hand and pulled her up on stage in front of hundreds of employees. Many of you may have doubted her, but today, I want to be clear. Emily Parker is more than just an assistant. She is someone who changed the way I look at perseverance, honesty, and my heart. The room was silent. Emily was stunned. Alexander continued, his voice deep. Emily, you have shown me that life is not just about numbers and contracts. Will you walk with me not only in work but in life? Applause erupted. Emily teared up, nodding in his arms. From then on, Emily was no longer the despised, barefoot girl. She became living proof that origin does not determine worth, but perseverance and sincerity create miracles. Alexander also changed. From a cold, lonely CEO, he gradually learned to smile and live honestly with his emotions. They not only find love, but also find healing for past wounds. You know, as I reflect on Emily's journey, I can't help but think about how many times life tries to test us in the most humiliating ways. A broken shoe, whispers behind our backs, doors slammed in our face. Sometimes it feels like the world is designed to make us quit. But the truth is, every obstacle is a hidden mirror. It reflects not what we lack, but what we carry inside, our determination, our dignity, our will to keep walking even when the path cuts our feet. In my own life, I've learned that success isn't always about the finest clothes, the wealthiest background, or the loudest voice in the room. It's about showing up when giving up would be easier. It's about proving, not to others, but to yourself, that you are more than what the world assumes. And here's a thought I'd like you to sit with. What if the very thing that shames you today is the key to your strength tomorrow? Think about it. Maybe the ridicule, the failure, the doubt, all of it is shaping you into someone the world won't be able to ignore. So I'll leave you with this. Don't be afraid to walk into your destiny barefoot if you must. The ground may be cold, but the courage inside you is always warm enough to carry you through. If you find this story meaningful and want to help us share these important values, please subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next inspiring story. Together, we can build a strong community full of potential and a spirit of justice.